Louise Bedford here, your host of the Talking Trading podcast. This is how traders excel. Now, years ago, people thought about post-traumatic stress as being one way for people to react to a disaster or a trauma. And as you might have heard, post-traumatic stress is such a significant aspect. It affects 10 to 20% of people who are involved in a trauma. And it can have things like recurring nightmares, and you have a racing heart for no reason when there's no stimulus, but there was some little trigger that tipped you over the edge, and it can be very difficult to beat. Now, if psychologists had have stopped there, that would have sounded like a bad luck story. Sure, 10 to 20% of people in every trauma seem to have stress that goes on past the event. But psychologists look further than just that. The positive psychology movement has been wonderful, and they've also found that post-traumatic growth affects also 10 to 20% of people after a trauma or after a disaster. This is where people's minds are opened up, they start to think differently, they look for the gift, and they look for the lessons that they can take forward, even if it means that you, as a grieving mother, are comforting another grieving mother. They take that gift of empathy and they spread it into the world. Now, I love that. I think of midlife crises as being the same. Our midlife can be a time when people get a flashy sports car, start dating somebody far too young, start hanging out at the gym, and maybe perhaps that is the societal view. But I want to question that at the moment, because if that is our negative view of midlife and we are heading towards something full speed that we only have a negative view of, my goodness, this looks like a car crash. So as a result, I have invited Jamin Fraser onto the show. Jamin, I would love your thoughts firstly, before I give you a full introduction. What are your thoughts about post-traumatic stress versus post-traumatic growth, and how this can be applied for traders?
Well, I would like to start that question by just defining trauma. So a bit of context, a former business partnership I had, we had an opportunity to work in the soldier recovery unit in Enoggera in Brisbane with PTSD with soldiers. A very difficult but very common occurrence. And the research we discovered around trauma was that it was broken rapport with self. And so a soldier is dehumanized in many ways in their training because command and control is how soldiers work. So the emotion of empathy, compassion, kindness, love, they're not useful for soldiers. And so a soldier would face all kinds of terrible things and just override them because they've been trained to not have a human response. But it turns out that's good for a soldier, but not good for a human. And humans still do have human responses. They just get suppressed. And so the trauma was actually this breakdown of trust internally. The human was going, I don't trust your decision making. You continue to push me into dangerous and difficult situations that I do not like. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to sabotage your leadership and break this process down so you get to go home. So if that's through breakdown, burnout, injury, chronic fatigue, some autoimmune, whatever I got to do to get you out of this, that's what I'm going to do. And so this trauma experience about the difficulty was not actually that you experienced something horrible. It's that when you experience something horrible, you didn't have the operating system to have a human response to it. And so I love that definition, because then the way forward is to rebuild trust with yourself. It's to develop your capacity to be a human and have a human experience, and to trust your capacity to handle life well. So I think that can be built. So whatever's going on, whatever the difficulty that a person's gone through, if you don't review that and review the way that you dealt with that and the way you gamified that, or the story you told about that, then I think there's this residual lack of trust within yourself about what's coming next. So then little things can trigger this massive anxiety because you're not confident. You've got what it takes to deal with the complexity of life. And so much about my work is this very conversation. People midlife who've found a way to battle their way to here, but there's this great mistrust internally. There's this nervousness, this fragility about your capacity to handle life. So to get to a post-traumatic growth response where you're able to actually build on that and thrive, I'd say there's no way you could do that unless you've rebuilt trust with yourself and renegotiated terms about your decision-making, your story, and the rules that you live out of. A long answer, but that's how I think about that very subject.
And Jamin, this is why I've invited you to the show. You're a dedicated advocate in the battle against personal insecurity, which is a silent inhibitor of human potential. In a world where countless individuals grapple with the impact of insecurity on their health, relationships, finances, work, and purpose, you're the founder of the Insecurity Project, and you offer a proven framework of 7 essential practices to permanently solve insecurity problems and allow individuals to show up at their best. JaminFraser.com. I'm going to spell Jamin's name, Jaemin, and Fraser, Frazer, JaminFraser.com. And you are also a fellow podcaster. You're the brains behind the Unhindered podcast. So Unhindered is the one for you. Jamin, what have I missed out on in that introduction?
Boy, look, I could be so self-indulgent. Just to also add, there's a number of books as part of the resource base for the Insecurity Project to help people think intelligently and in a very structured way about human dysfunction and suffering.
Okay, well, name them, my friend. Name them.
Look, okay, so we got elegantly simple solutions to complex people problems. We have Unhindered, the 7 essential practices for overcoming insecurity. We've got the 1 Minute Coach, which is 365 60-second sound bites for radio, turn into a book to start your day. And we have Leverage, how to change the people you love for all the right reasons and get the relationships you deserve. And then the final one, most recent one, is the Self-Permission Method, how to succeed at life without self-discipline.
Magic. So that is just so impressive because not only have you got the rungs on the board, but you're also presenting through many different mediums. I want to focus on midlife. Now, my traders come to me a lot of the time. They're looking to transition perhaps away from a job that's full-time, that's draining their energy, and into trading either full-time or as a part-time job trading type of combination. What do you think are the primary challenges facing people who are entering that midlife phase?
Well, I would say the only challenge, and that's a strong word to use, but I'll be wholehearted about my area of expertise and just speak to that. I would say is the greatest challenge you'll have midlife is, do you have permission from yourself to show up and play the game wholeheartedly, or do you not? So I love the midlife season because I think it's the first and only opportunity your unconscious gets to demand better terms. And I love the way that shows up because it's often confusing, but the unconscious will use whatever means available to get your attention. And so that starts with physical pain. If you're not used to listening to yourself, your unconscious accesses 90% of your daily function. So the most common sense way to get your attention would be through physical pain, through some kind of health thing, some kind of strange experience that you don't really understand. But if you can have a framework to realize it's like the safety officer has come on site on your workplace and said, tools down, this setup's not safe. Like, I might look like your enemy by thwarting progress and profitability right now, but I am here doing my job wholeheartedly. If you want to keep this thing rolling, your setup must be safe. And currently it's not. So therefore you do not have permission from yourself to tool up, to power up, to move forward in this season. That to me is the very most important challenge and the most powerful challenge and the most predictable challenge any midlifer will face, especially an ambitious midlifer who isn't ready to pack it up and just, settle down doing nothing, thinks that there's still some stuff to do in their life and wants to see success and productivity and effectiveness in the next season. If you don't have permission from yourself, you won't win that battle. You cannot override with self-discipline from beyond midlife.
And if something like a health issue has cropped up, how do you work backward to work out what the initial problem is where you're out of alignment with your life purpose or your goals?
Well, I think if it's predictable, then there's got to be a way of thinking about this structured manner. People typically imagine their problems as really complicated and unique, and they're not. So if you can kind of realize there's a very common experience in midlife, then you can go looking for the predictable nature about it. So I would say there's only ever one of four things. And narrow the field of search and just go, I don't know what this is about. I can't imagine how, where, why I've broken rapport with myself or how I'd fix it. And if you can imagine the safety officer who's come on site and said, this setup's not safe, and they've got a list of safety issues, and the generalization will be there will be four areas of concern for every midlifer, every ambitious lifer. And I find that very useful because if you can, anyone can work their way through four things, and maybe it's not the first, maybe it's not the second, but it probably will be the third or the fourth. So that's a useful way to think about this, to get your head in the game of how do you gain permission from yourself and where to start.
Mm. I want to know those four things, though. Are you going to keep me hanging here?
I'll tell you those four things, but I must see my tendency. I've got content coming out my ass, and I'm so enamored with these frameworks that I've got to be careful that I don't just tell everyone everything, assuming everyone wants to know. I'd love to tell you. So here are the four, as simply as possible. So the first red flag, let's call them red flags. The safety officers come on site, says tools down, your setup not safe. And here's the thing, red flag number one, you do not trust me. You don't trust me. And let's not say this is good, bad, right, wrong. Let's just say that's really dangerous. Because if there's no internal trust, no safe place to retreat to within, the world's going to eat you alive. Like, how are you supposed to survive in the world without trust? Now, I think trust is a solvable problem, which is good news. And that's news to some people because they don't know how to rebuild trust in their normal relationships. So how would they rebuild it internally? But if I could make this simple, trust is an issue of danger. So the reason you don't trust yourself or anyone is because at some point in time, something's gone down, it's created hurt, it's created danger. So you don't trust yourself because you consider there is some part of you that is dangerous. Therefore, you're constantly managing yourself. You're constantly monitoring yourself. You're constantly using self-discipline to override your natural tendencies, afraid that if you relax and let your guard down, that the dangerous part of you will come out and take over and move you backwards. So safety officer gone, that's so unfair and so unkind. That is such a misunderstanding. And if you're willing to have a look at this, this is my whole work around insecurity, by the way, because people are afraid that there's some inadequacy. But if you examine what that inadequacy is, it's always the same thing, this accusation you made against yourself, in a moment of pain, hurt, upset, embarrassment in your childhood that you've never reviewed objectively as an adult. You've just perpetuated. And so that has to be solvable, right? Because as a child, sure, you make this assessment of what went down and what it meant about you, but the likelihood of you got that analysis right, it's impossible. You didn't get it right. It's a misunderstanding. So I find that the very first thing your unconscious wants to talk to you about. You keep telling me that I'm bad or I'm lazy or I'm silly or I'm weird or you've got some problem with me, and we got to sort this out because it's unfair and unkind, and you don't trust me and you manage me, and it's horrible being in a relationship with you being managed. So we've got to sort that out until we trust each other, till we're okay, until you know who I am and we're good. So does that one make sense? Number one,
that
trust.
Definitely does. So you're saying that in that conversation that we're having with ourselves, we need to be in alignment between our thoughts and our actions, because up until that point, our actions have been overcoming or perhaps not doing what our thoughts are leading us towards.
For sure. And it's this self-discipline idea that you're using your best energy against yourself to manage yourself. You cannot relax in your own nature because you assume there's something bad. That is the human condition. We want to be good. We're just afraid. We run and we hide and we prove or we defend. That's first season of life energy. You can get away with that in your 20s and 30s. You can't get away with that in your 40s, 50s. It's horrific. It's abusive. It's toxic. And so the safety officer using pain to go, can we please not have this kind of relationship anymore? You don't trust me, and how are you supposed to survive in the world and thrive in the world without mistrust? So that's safety issue number one. Now, number two is similar, but slightly different. That is, you keep showing up needy. And neediness is the most unattractive and weakest way you could ever position yourself. And you keep getting hurt because the people or the things you need something from don't want to give you what you need. And then you suffer. So this is a legacy from the childhood strategy you've been running, where a child can only outsource their core needs to the world. They do need the adults in the world to give them certainty and significance and love. There's no other way. And so they've transacted to get that. Okay, what have I got to do? Who I've got to be to get my parents to like me, to get my friends to accept me, to get my peers to validate me? Great, I'll do whatever it takes. And so you become whoever you need to be to play the game to get what you need. It's all a child can do, but an adult, the adult is supposed to be sufficient, self-sufficient. You worked out how to dress yourself and feed yourself and clothe yourself. So now it's time for psychological, emotional, relational self-sufficiency, time to upgrade your vehicle, the way that you meet your needs so that you show up in the world secure in who you are, not needy.
That neediness can take a couple of different directions. Like some of my friends seem to be entering into their second and third marriage, but they're marrying basically the same person that they married the first time around. So they're choosing the same type of person who cannot fulfill their needs. And then the other aspect is becoming more self-sufficient so that you're not having to outsource those needs quite as much, that you can have within yourself the ability to self-soothe.
Yeah. So even that subtlety around being, not outsourcing so much, the safety jobs is like any outsourcing is dangerous. You are precariously placed because if you don't get what you need from the world, then it hurts and you have to retreat and you suffer. So the safest way to be you in the world would be to be your own source of certainty, to be the one that deeply loves and accepts yourself, to be the one that knows you, accepts you, validates you. That would be the safest way to be you. Because if you could do that for yourself, where is the danger now? You're free to go play in the world if you can be that. And that's a big stretch for most people. But it's such a joy to upgrade and realize every cell in your body is designed for maturity. That is a natural trajectory of the human being to move towards maturity. So it's just these fears and insecurities that get in the way when we think we could possibly meet our own need. It's all based on this first problem that you don't trust yourself. So these do go in order. Rebuild the trust and realize, these accusations you made against yourself and misunderstandings, you've always been enough. Now bring that enoughness toward yourself first, so that frees you from this game playing and these strategies of people pleasing and transacting with the world. Now you're free to just be you. That's number two.
And so for traders, how does this show up? Let me perhaps interpret for traders.
Right.
With traders, sometimes what we find is that it's almost like there's an invisible hand guiding them towards successful trading or unsuccessful trading. And unless you can trust yourself, that unsuccessful trading script will get played out again and again, reinforcing that you don't belong here, that you are unworthy, that you don't need those profits. And even if you do need them, money flees need. So we have to be very careful with the money scripts we wrap around these psychological principles. I'm loving it. Give me number 3.
Well, that's so good. And just to reiterate what you said, so you can imagine what a beautifully loving message to have your unconscious get in your way, block you, even using physical pain to get your attention. You go, like, you're going to think I'm your enemy, but I'm just desperate to make sure your next setup is safe, and it's not safe. So that would be very cruel to give you access to confidence and clarity and motivation if your operating system is dangerous. So let's make the upgrades, get permission granted, and then let's do this thing together. So it's a loving conversation if you can see this framework and lean into it. The number 3 is, again, expressing the negative as the safety red flag, and that is your gameplay sucks. So it's like you are playing the wrong game the wrong way, or you're playing the right game the wrong way. But either way, you're in a game, maybe you don't even know it's a game, or maybe you know it's a game, but you haven't learned the rules. And so the net effect is you're losing. And every time you lose, you feel like a loser, like it wears down on your soul. So that's it. So there are 4 versions of the game played. 3 of them are dangerous. 1 of them is safe. So to quickly run through those, you could be playing the wrong game the wrong way. You can be playing the wrong game the right way, the right game the wrong way, or the right game the right way. A quick example of that is I had a friend, we went through school together. We finished together and I had a sense of clarity about what I wanted to do next. He didn't. And his dad said, well, you may as well just be an accountant, because I was an accountant. That worked for me. Now, my friend knew that was not what he should do, but didn't have another game. And so 20 years later, he's still an accountant. And the problem is that he doesn't like being an accountant and he's a shit accountant. So can you imagine the impact of rocking that game every day? Like, that's a disaster. Now, option 2 is wrong game, right way. So I imagine the same guy hates being an accountant, but learns to be a good accountant. That's a more confusing and problematic game to play, because then you're getting rewarded by the game, even though your soul's screaming at you going, it's not the right game. This is not you. You don't belong here. But, clients are telling you you're awesome. You're on your way to partner. And the likelihood of you breaking out of that is rare, but it's still the wrong game. And your unconscious is not going to give you more energy to play the wrong game. Right game the wrong way would be, imagine in a moment of clarity, that same person goes, hang on a minute, I wanted to be a school teacher. Like, when I was at school, there were a couple of teachers that so changed my life just by their presence and their wholeheartedness. And I thought then, imagine having an impact on the hearts and minds of young people. Imagine being that kind of person. And that's actually all that I wanted to do. And so in a moment of courage and clarity, quits the job, goes back to uni, eventually gets a teaching position, but then rocks it up the first day of teaching, gets given a year 10 class, walks in there all jacked up on Mountain Dew and gets his ass handed to him. Like, year 10 kids go, okay, here we go, fresh blood. So this teacher doesn't know the rules of the game, doesn't even think it's a game, just thinks everyone's going to be excited that he's doing what he was born to do. No one's excited. They're looking to do their own thing. And so gets mauled by the year 10 students, is discouraged. Teachers are talking about him, students are talking about him. So that's a dangerous thing too, because then it's the right game, but you don't know how to play it. So it's a red flag safety issue. Your unconscious screaming at you going, learn the bloody rules. It's
And
a
that's
game.
where a mentor can come in as well, because if it's the right game, so if trading is the right game, because we know that there's money to be made, but you are not feeling like this is your game, you can't really own it because you don't understand the rules. Maybe those rules seem very foreign to you. Maybe you have a blind spot that nobody has shone that light into. That's where a mentor can come and just give you that slight course correction to say, try it this way, or have you considered it like this? Or maybe this technique is for you. And it can actually immerse you. I think one of the difficulties with this is that we give up too easily. That year 10 teacher, if they go home after the first term, in the first term holidays, they go, this is not for me, I'm out. They have missed the opportunity to find that mentor teacher that can guide them.
100%. And we understand that these games have been playing a long time before we entered them. So it makes sense to reach out to people who are good at the games to learn the rule, to understand how do you win. Go find a teacher who knows how to control the year 10 students. Follow their rules. Go find a trader who's been in the game, who understands the game, play the game by the rules. You'd think about it if you were going to play basketball or if you wanted to start triathlon, like you'd understand that as a game. So every area of your life, to consider the games you're caught up in. Are they the right games for you? If not, exit them, find the right games and then learn the rules. Otherwise, you won't have permission granted from your unconscious. Why would you get more energy from your unconscious to play the wrong game or the right game in the wrong way? So the game audit is a really essential part of number 3.
And I wonder as well with that, if there are some aspects of the game with trading, if you don't like, you're not capable of, I'm thinking of BAS statements here, okay, I'll be completely transparent, is to outsource the aspects that don't appeal to you, that you don't feel skilled up to be able to do, or you're not willing to develop those skills. That is still a way of playing the game. Learning where to outsource, I think, is a very valuable part of step 3. So we've got, you do not trust me, you show up needy, your gameplay sucks, and your safety officer is trying to protect you in all of these steps. So what is number 4?
Number 4 is you keep showing up. with an incongruent avatar. So an avatar just means the embodiment of a persona or an ideal. So a crude example of this would be, all right, you're playing basketball, but you keep showing up with your netball skirt on. So it's like you haven't taken yourself seriously yet, and no one else has taken you seriously. So even though it's the right game, you're playing it the right way, you're still not winning, and it's really confusing you. So if it's the right game and you trust yourself, not now, you have to show up wholehearted. You have to actually show up like you belong before anyone else is giving you permission, before anyone else is saying you deserve it. If it's your right game and you trust yourself, then be there on purpose and signal to yourself and the world that you are a professional in this game, not an amateur. Because if you're an amateur, you'll get your ass kicked and then you'll get confused about the whole thing.
This is tapping into a few aspects. It's looking at your identity as a trader. So what makes an excellent trader? And can you work out the areas that you need to work on to be able to either shave off or polish in order to emerge into that identity? And it also comes, tell me if I'm wrong here, because I'm interested in your views, but future self is so important. So working out who you're going to be 5 years from now, and that type of perfect avatar of who you can be in all of your magnificence and being lured towards it. That, I think, identity as a future version of yourself can really help traders. In the future, how do you want to show up in the world? Do you want to be a full-time trader, or is this a part-time gig and that's fine? I had a client of mine, a member of my mentor program, Brian Carpenter, and he got business cards printed with his name and full-time trader underneath. Now, I loved it because he was used to handing out business cards at meetings. So for him, that was his currency, that was his language. And by having that business card there, it reinforced who he is and who he is becoming. I'd love your thoughts on that.
So I totally agree. The subtlety around really landing into this is the be, do, have model. So 3 ways of showing up. The first is the victim. They are the have, do, be. So they are, when I have enough time, when I have enough money, when I have enough expertise, when I have the right conditions, then I'll do the things that I should do and I want to do, and then I'll be happy and successful. But that, can you see, like it's just a bit, it's hard to be me because of what I don't have. So the victim is waiting and comparing. So a very unsuccessful way, but a very common way. And second trap, bit more subtle and more common, but equally as unaffected. That's the worker. They do have be. So they're not waiting and they're not comparing. They're working. They're convinced the more I do, the more I'll have, and the more I'll have, the happier I'll be. So they're focused on effort, energy, hustle, just getting it done. And they assume the more that the energy generates, and it'll inevitably lead to success. And the problem is the more you do, the more there is still to do, and the more you have, the more there is to lose. And you get stuck in this, it's just outside of my reach all the time.
Yeah.
And the being never eventuates. So the most abstract, counterintuitive, countercultural way, but the only way that actually works is the be, do, have. So they know what they want. They begin with the end in mind, but they start there before they have any right to. So the future self, great. But they don't wait until they have a right to be the future self. They start there now. So if the future self is a full-time trader, well then, until I can actually be that person now, before anyone else is saying that about me, before I have any right to, it's my job to be there now. Everything's created twice. Begin with the end in mind, works way backwards. And so embody that character, dress like that person, walk like that person, talk like that person, put out a business card like that person, and go do what that person would do. And then you'll have what they have. That's the avatar is go be that person now from the start. So, writing a book, you don't write a book by, waiting till inspiration or waiting till accolades or waiting till someone else's permission. You have to write a book by being a writer. You come into your office, you get dressed, you open your laptop, and so you already are a writer. Being a writer, then you do what a writer would do. So I love that model as a really profound and powerful way of consolidating that idea to go, okay, wholeheartedness before you have any right. And it's not fake it till you make it. There's some integrity to it because you trust yourself. You don't need, what's your game? Great. Well, then you go play it wholeheartedly from the beginning. Signal to yourself and the world that you belong here and you've taken yourself seriously.
Hmm. Could you pop it into a nutshell for us? How do these tools help us overcome midlife crises and midlife potential health issues that we're facing or identity issues that we're facing? Maybe if you could summarize before we go on.
The big misconception about self-permission is that you can give yourself permission. I'm just going to give myself permission to be happy, give myself permission to relax, to not care what others think. That's not how it works. Permission is governed by the unconscious. The best part of you, the deepest part of you, the truest part of you. And the midlife is a chance for your unconscious to go, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, you don't need self-awareness to run your life in the first season. You can fight against yourself. You've got energy to waste. And so midlife dilemma is your unconscious going, okay, this is not working and it's dangerous. So permission denied. So if you would like that permission granted, there are conditions you will need to satisfy to make this safe. So to think about it like this negotiation going on, this upgrade, you must have it granted by increasing safety. And the things that are dangerous are lack of trust, are neediness, are some kind of poor gameplay and showing up as the wrong person. So they're all solvable problems and they're beautiful problems to solve. And when you solve them, permission granted. Yeah, great. Let's get on with the business of prospering, of being successful, of being wholehearted. Let's do it together. So the midlife is a beautiful opportunity to review the operating system and the way you're showing up to life in every area. And this framework gives you some precision to know where those upgrades will have to be made.
I often think of myself divided into the presence that I bring to the world and my inner lunatic. Now, is the inner lunatic absolutely going nuts today? Is she completely flying off the handle? And if she is, what are the tools that can I use right now to soothe that inner lunatic or to actually even recognize what she is trying to tell me? So I'm loving this framework. And one of the things that I think people get tripped up on is they try and get themselves from a midlife perspective under control, should we say. Okay, things are flowing. We've got some action here. We've got some synchronicity. But then, of course, when you add a spouse into the mix, that can foul things up. It can either be a fantastic thing or it can actually be difficult. Now, you have got something very controversial, and I hope you don't mind sharing with us today. So often we hear, you cannot change your spouse. You can only change yourself. But Jamin, you have a different take on this. You say you can change your spouse. Tell us more.
Well, it's controversial, but I'm not trying to be difficult or provocative or polarizing. So there was a study done by LG Electronics who surveyed 3,000 UK couples, and they found that 1 in 3 people wake up beside the single most annoying person they know. And I found that just hilarious because you don't go out into the marketplace looking for the most annoying person you know to shack up with.
Actually, I do remember Rod Stewart saying, the next time I'm thinking of getting married, I'm just going to find someone that I really don't like and give them a house.
Yes. Well, that's where it deteriorates to. And so, okay, well, that's where it ends up, but that wasn't where it started. So what goes wrong? And what goes wrong is you start in this clean space of rapport, of connection, of love, of intimacy, of good behavior. You're on your best behavior when you're dating, when you're wooing and pursuing. And so, but then things deteriorate and the space becomes polluted. Inevitably, stuff comes between you. You upset each other, you disappoint each other, you embarrass each other, things happen. And that requires a conversation about change, because to leave those things unaddressed continues to contaminate the space between you until it deteriorates so badly until you can't even stand that person. There's no connection. You're in some kind of an arrangement together. So I just advocate for what a person would want in the beginning, and that is a clean space. And my question was, is it possible to re-clean the space? Is it possible to play the clean space game and keep the space clean? And I've discovered it is. I've been married 25 years this year, and I promise you we don't have a perfect marriage, but the space is clean. And it gets polluted, but we know how to re-clean it. And that re-cleaning process demands change at certain times. It demands we get better. It demands that thing that we do that annoys the other person, upsets them, or misunderstands. Like, that's not going to work for me anymore. You can't keep doing that. If you do that again, the natural implication is I will resent you. And if I resent you, that will be bad for our relationship. So I know you don't think you need to change it, but you do. If you love me, you've got to do better. Thinking about the 5 stages of the leverage model, and using leverage is a really important word, because 2 people are never ready for change at the same time. Someone's got to go first. It's the person who has is in more pain or has more desire or more hope. They've got to use some leverage. They have to, just like I described your unconscious using leverage of physical pain. At some point, that one partner's got to go, all right, I'm not asking, not suggesting, I'm actually demanding that we do this differently, because this is not working for me. And the process of security, clarity, integrity, maturity, authority is a very common sense approach to coming out the other side stronger, back in the clean space. Because that's a beautiful thing. I couldn't think of anything more beautiful to wake up. I wake up beside Catherine in the morning and I look at her and she looks at me and go, there's nothing between us. Like, this love, this intimacy, and it keeps getting stronger in the life we share together. To wake up and feel like the space is polluted and I'm in an arrangement with someone who's sharing my house, like, that's a high level of suffering.
So how do you go about cleaning that space? Give me more.
Let me just quickly give you these 5. So, security, that's the neediness piece. If you see this played out in the supermarket, a mother negotiating with a 2-year-old about a Mars bar, and you're pushing your trolley, giggling to yourself because you know how this escalation is going to end. Mum saying, no, darling, we just had Wheat Bix. I'll take you home. I'll make you a Vegemite sandwich. Mum, I'm going to need the Mars bar. And it's escalating. And you know that before that kid leaves the supermarket, he'll not only get the Mars bar, but the chocolate move in and Chubba Chup as well. And you think, how does this happen? Because the mum has the car, has the money, has the size and the strength, but the kid has the power. And the only way that works is because the kid has realized mum needs something from me that I can withhold. My mum needs me to like her. That's how this works. If I withhold my like, my affection, if I say, I hate you, mum, mum doesn't know how to feel good about herself without her children liking her. So she'll do whatever I say. So that neediness, that insecurity means you have no leverage. You have no ability to negotiate better terms. You must give in. You've only got bluff. So the first point is you have to be secure. You have to know your worth. So the mother who's able to say no to the child is the mother who hasn't outsourced her sense of self to her 2-year-old, who's actually self-referenced. I'm a good mother. Why would I need your opinion or any of you mothers judging me right now's opinion about whether or not I'm a good mum? I know I'm a good mum, and that's not up for grabs. So settle down. You're not having the Mars bar. Get up off the couch. Get here. We're going home, and you're getting a honey sandwich, and you're going to be okay. You can carry on all you like. So that's a foundation of security is non-negotiable, and that is the insecurity project work built into this relationship space. That's security. Once you're clear about what you deserve. Number 2, clarity. What do you want? And you're going to have to pitch something, and you have to be clear about what you're pitching. If you're going to demand change, what is it that you want to be changed? Are you sure? I think one of my favorite lines in the book is be clear or be quiet. So do some work around the thing you're upset about. Are you sure you want to go to battle about this thing? Because not everything's worth fighting for. Some things certainly are. So don't come in half-baked. Don't just fly off at your mouth. Think about it. And off the back of your security, go, okay, this thing, you know how when we go out that night and we're with other people and you say that thing, don't ever say that to me ever again. I'm serious. And then you escalate. So you got to expect pushback, and it'll be all what?
Consequences. Yeah.
Consequences. So you got to be ready to go all the way through. If you're going to escalate, you have to have thought about taking this to the end. And so the integrity piece has to come next, because the pushback's coming, the gaslighting is coming. The other person doesn't want to change. They don't even think they need to change. They're going to try and get out of change. And they'll try and get out of it by undermining you and telling you that you're being silly or selfish or petty. And so the integrity piece is, hey, listen, this is actually the best of me talking to the best of you for the best reasons. So you can't bully me off the turf. This is hard-fought territory. And I'm not asking you to do anything that I haven't already asked myself. So this is not me being selfish. This is me bringing my best here. So good luck pushing me away from this. And you're going to get a chance too. If you want me to change some stuff, fabulous. But I've started this, right? So like these are serious conversations, but if you have them properly, you can have them once. And so security, be clear about what you deserve. Clarity, be clear about what you desire. Integrity, make sure you've taken the plank out of your own eye first to see clearly and take the speck out of their eye. You've rubbed the barbecue sauce down off your own shirt before you start worrying about theirs. Then maturity. So don't come at this like a child. Bring your adult skills. I watched this mattress ad on telly the other day that says relationships are all about compromise. You got to find what works. Rubbish. That's the worst thing I've ever heard. We don't compromise. We negotiate. Compromise is lose-lose. Negotiate is win-win. Negotiate is change my mind. Give me a reason to see it like you do. Find a way that hasn't existed before. So I love the dance. I love when two adults want different things. That's just where the fun starts. Let's work this through. Let's find a way that suits us both and demand an adult conversation about this troubling thing rather than, too hard. You always say that and I can't, demand that it stays there. And then the final piece is authority. So it's like, and I have considered this all the way through. So I know what I deserve. It doesn't make sense to tolerate something that I don't desire. This is the best of me, speaking to the best of you. I'm being an adult. So if you don't want to treat me the way that I deserve and desire, that has some consequences. And I'm actually okay to allow you to experience the consequences of your choices here. And I won't feel bad for you. And I know that I'm wonderful. So there are 10 other people lining up outside here who would love to take your place if you would like to forfeit it. And that's not a threat. I'm not being dramatic. I just know who I am. And you're very lucky to have me in your world. So treat me poorly at your peril. So that authority piece, it's not demonstrative. You're not aggressive, you're not attacking. You just know who you are and you're ready to hold the ground. You hold that line till the end.
And it may not even be that you're using words around this. It could be your posture and your presence and your previous activity has ensured that they know that you will be fine. So I think that's a framework that adds specificity to something that many traders face. Sometimes traders are in the situation where their spouse doesn't quite believe in them and they feel held back by that spouse. Now, I do see people grapple with this, and the ones that come out victorious use something like an if-then statement. So they remind the spouse of the love that is experienced. They ask for feedback initially, and they say, after this conversation, because trading is so important to me, and because I believe that our future involves trading, because of these reasons, I want you to tell me exactly what you're thinking. And I want to do this once because I'm getting the feeling that you don't believe in me and I'm struggling with that. I have built in an if-then statement. If I lose 25% or more of our money, so 26%, 27%, sometimes it goes over a little bit, then I will stop trading for new positions and I will consult a higher authority. So having that backstop as a trader, having that finality so that you're protecting the safety of your spouse is so important. And then springing off into this type of conversation, using those concepts so that you can get your point across. You can hear what they're saying. You're not completely blocking them off, but you're also standing your ground as a trader. Oh, Jamin, you've just been awesome to talk to on the show. I have loved every minute. Where can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, if you can work out how to spell my name, you'll find my website, you'll find my podcast, my socials. My parents gave me the gift of a unique name, and as far as I know, there's still only one Jamin Fraser spelt that way in the world. So
that's a jackpot. And we will pop all of those links into the show notes on talkingtrading.com.au as well. This episode is called Midlife Crisis or Triumph. So look that one up when you get to Talking Trading and you'll see all about Jamin there. Jamin, anything else to add before we go?
I don't think so. It's been a lovely conversation, and thanks so much for having me.
You are absolutely awesome. I damn well loved it. Have a wonderful day. And for everybody listening, happy trading.